I don't know if I should. Is it 7 or is it a few minutes before?
Oh, we still have some time.
Okay. So I'll wait a few more minutes maybe.
And people are usually late, so
Yeah.
I usually wait till like 5 after.
Actually, I was just thinking, like, some people. I'll just let you know. I'm gonna sell the book. The books are $12.99, but I'll just sell them for $10 a book. So if you want a book, it's $10. And I was thinking that if there's somebody that you wanted to get it for, so maybe you want to get one for yourself and one for somebody else, I'll try to give some kind of deal. So maybe I can give it like a couple dollars off on the second book, something like that. So if you want to get 3, I'll make it even a bigger bargain. And I can sign them as well.
Good. I was thinking if everybody get together, we'll buy 40 at one time.
That's what I was thinking. I had to make that clear. That if you buy one for yourself and somebody is not here.
This one needs to be signed in case.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, actually, if anybody thinks that they might leave beforehand, I can just sign something real quick as well. And
Neil said he ordered probably. You got it on Amazon?
yep, it's on Amazon now.
Yeah,
So
because Neil said he's got, or I would have got him one, but.
And you were over there last year, weren't you? Yes. So is he signed on for another year? He's enjoying it that much? So that's wonderful.
I don't think so.
My tip is to go back to school, even though 3 kids are.
I kind of wrote something quick. So
No, that's yours.
are you sure? You want a second book for somebody else?
Okay.
Are you sure? I can give you a second one for 20.
No.
Yeah?
This is good.
Okay. Should I sign it?
Just sign your name around it because I'm not sure when to give it to me.
Okay.
We both kind of. Is that you? I don't know my bald kid. He is so cute. Greater than mine, but
Or 2 hours?
I do the same thing. Right, so I have
Thank you so much.
Carl, who's that? I don't know.
Much appreciated. Oh, I know. People
Recognize it. Sounds like a deal anyhow.
Yeah. Also, if anybody's interested, I also have some cards here too. So, and I'll get started in a minute. But if anybody's interested, you can give these to some people if you want a few of them.
Sure. What is the cards?
It has my name on it,
Thank
and
you.
it has
Thank you.
You're welcome. You can give them to some other people then they can find it if they're interested. You want some cards as well? Should I sign it now?
You get a farmer's tan on your.
Maybe those and spread them around the river. Yeah, I created a little card just so I can. Let me just see. I'm going to get started in a minute, so.
Yeah, because
Can I sign it in a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll just I'll get started so you guys can
Get going.
if you need to. We'll just get this started. Gotta make sure this one is going to. Okay. So I have plenty of books, by the way, so you don't have to worry. So I'll let me just see. So my name is Kevin Maher. So I grew up in Sanilac. I grew up in Michigan, and I lived in Peck for a while, and got lots of uncles and aunts in Fort Sanilac as well. Some of them are here. And some from Canada as well. Traveled all the way. So then the next slide. Actually, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of show you a little bit of what it was like for me in Korea. And then I'll talk about the book near the end. So, so basically, how did I get started? Right now, I'm 45 years old. So in 1996, I was 26, and I would have been living in Portland, Oregon. And so a lot of people, it depends on where a person lives, they kind of ask, well, how did you get interested in teaching English abroad? So basically, when I was in Oregon, this is kind of a famous bookstore. It's a city block. It's quite large. And there's a lot of books about Asia, because Oregon is kind of connected to Korea and Japan based on proximity. So I was able to find some books teaching English abroad, teaching English in Korea. And this was 20 years ago, so there's not that many books 20 years ago. But now there's tons and tons of books. So I was thinking I could probably even write a book based on that already by now. But now online there's so many books like that already. So okay, the next slide. And basically, I kind of wanted to share a little bit about teaching English in Korea. So maybe some of you might know somebody who has been in Korea, or maybe you know somebody who might be interested. Especially people who are making decisions when they're younger, they might want to adventure. But actually, it's available to anybody. But basically, when I first went there in '96, there's these recruiters, and a lot of them are on the West Coast, and some of them are in Canada, and pretty much everywhere. But they get $1,000 to connect any kind of native speaker to Korea. So basically, I was able to meet one of these people in Korea, and they connected me to be able to teach English abroad. The next slide. And basically, when you go to Korea, and I went in the 90s, but now there's even more and more teachers all the time. And when I first went in '96, there was very, very few. So this book has a story based on that 1 year that I was there in '96, '97. But actually, I've been there now for 20 years. So actually, if I was to write this book today, my book would be very, very, very different, because Korea is such a different place now. But in '96, but actually, this would still be the same. But if you were to go there and teach English, you would get free housing. You would get paid monthly, but then if you complete a 1-year contract, you get another month of pay. And then you also get free airfare home. You teach about 30 hours a week, and you get the paycheck at the end of each month. And the contracts are kind of interesting because like now things are much more corporate, where things are very solidified and things don't change much. But in the 1990s, there's a lot of, like, we call them cowboy institutes, and basically they might not honor your contracts very much, which means that some of these things can change on you. So in this book, there's kind of a story that takes place, and you can see that they call them Hagwon. It's a language institute, and they change things on you quickly, so you don't always expect it. So you'll see that theme in this book about how things kind of change on you sometimes. But that's basically the standard contract. And basically, I wrote this book in 1998. So, but I haven't published it until 2016. And I arrived there 20 years ago, so I was thinking, well, 1996, 2016, I need to get this in a book form and get it out there. So I had it copy edited. I had an editor go through it with me, and I had various people help me out with it as well. So the story takes place 96, 97, but if I was to write it now, I'd have something totally different, because my mind has changed a lot since 1997, 98. So take that in mind. If you read it, you're going to kind of read the story from somebody who's 27 years old at that time, as opposed to someone who's 45. So the 27-year-old mindset is a lot different. So you're going to see a story kind of like that. And these days, actually, just so you guys can kind of know, I'm also kind of created some YouTube clips. They're online. So if you were trying to find no couches in Korea, or if you knew somebody who might be interested, anybody that's interested, they could find some clips. This is one of my current coworkers, and she's interviewing me about stuff about Korea. She's a woman that's been in Asia for 30 years, so I've been there for 20 years. So interesting person to talk to, and many people over there are. So next one. Basically, just so you kind of get an idea, this is called a Hagwon. A Hagwon is a language institute. It's a Korean word. So basically, all the schools over there, they have foreign teachers, basically. English native speakers. So they'll hire them from abroad. And then usually you're in a classroom where, like, this might be a group of students. So I would be maybe here, and these might be 5 students, and I would just be teaching them English. and I'll set up English lessons for them.
So
next,
would the other tables be another group with another teacher, or is that?
actually, I'll show you a different picture
Okay.
because actually that like this could be one setup, but actually I was just finding something online, but I have another one that's actually more specific,
Okay.
and I'll show you that one. Another thing that happens in this book, and this one is just kind of showing you a little bit of what Korea is like, but basically these are called a noraebang, and in Korea there's lots of these things called a bang is like a room, Korean word for the word room. So a lot of students, and you'll see this in the book too, but a lot of students they'll have an English teacher, but then they might want to take them out to do something. So it's like a lot of times it's like, oh, let's go get coffee. Then you go to a noraebang and you sing. I can't sing, so usually I would try to avoid the situation. But some of the people in this book, they do go to noraebangs with the students and they sing and they kind of. So I wanted you to see a picture of it. But basically, they'll have a TV screen, a booth, and it's basically just a room. They'll hire it, rent it out for 2 hours, 1 hour, or something like that, and they'll
They just go in there and do like karaoke?
exactly. They just do karaoke, and they'll have like you get a set list of tons and tons of English songs, tons of Korean songs, Japanese songs, and you
I
can
knew they like karaoke.
so you can do Surfing USA or whatever you want. It's all there. And so that, and actually you'll see that in the book, but I also just wanted to kind of let you see what Korea was kind of like in 2016, but it was like this in '96 too. So the next slide is going to be. This is another thing I used to have is DVD bungs. I didn't write about this in the book, but it's so much in Korea. Korea is very modern, and it's lots of layers of stuff. So this one, a DVD bung, and you just go up there and you can rent a video. So the other one you can sing. And this one you can just rent a video, and you can rent it for 2 hours, VHS. And sometimes people, they'll rent it out and just sleep in it just because they don't want to get a hotel. So that's quite common there too. Another room, the next slide is the PC bang. Same kind of thing, but people rent out these ones. In Korea, maybe you've heard some on the news, but it's a very wired country. So the internet is very fast there. The technology is very developed. And so like the internet, these PC bangs are everywhere. So if Port Sanilac was in Korea, you'd probably have like 50 PC bangs, probably. Because they're just everywhere. And basically people just come in here and they rent stuff. And basically when I was in Korea in '96, they didn't have them at that time. So I was actually there in '96, '97, and I saw the first one come in '97, which was very different than this. And then when I came back, I left Korea for a couple of years, and I came back in 2000. And then these were everywhere. So now you see them everywhere you go in Korea. There's PC bang everywhere, noraebang everywhere. The noraebangs had always been there, but PC bangs are kind of since the year 2000, more internet
Do
related.
this, Kevin, because they don't have a PC at home, or?
They mostly do these. They're pretty well wired, so they have a lot of broadband. But back in 2000, broadband was like the computers wasn't as fast. It was more that dial at that time. So in the year 2000, these really picked up quite a bit. And then now they're kind of fading out of popularity a little bit because Wi-Fi is getting so fast that now you don't really need to go to these. But they're really popular with gaming in Korea, like lots of StarCraft and video games and things like this. And they need to be live action because they'll interact with all the other players. So the internet is really, really fast.
Yeah,
And
is that they rent them out like by the hour?
These ones they do. So these
Yeah.
would be about $1 an hour, probably. Yeah.
Mine.
Yeah, that was actually a shock because when I came back here in the year 2000, I was going back and forth, and I might see an internet cafe in Manhattan, and it would be like $5 an hour. But
Right,
it-
that's what that's what I was gonna say. I know other countries, they actually do it by like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or.
they do have that too. They have
Oh.
they'll you can rent it out for $1 an hour, and if you stay for 15 minutes, they'll do it by the 15-minute
Ooh.
one, so it'd be like $1.25 or
Yeah.
so different arrangements. And another one. Oh, actually, in the book, the Internet Cafe, there's a chapter near the end when I go back to Korea. The last few chapters is me going back to Korea a few times and seeing how the internet is changing a lot. So you kind of see that near the end of the book if you read that. This is a hard one. This is a language institute. This is the Korean letters for it. But this is kind of what it looks like. So basically, the teacher would be here, and you'd have a private room. So kind of the same thing. You have a PC bang, video bang, all these different rooms for different stuff. And this one is basically a language teaching room. So these students would come here for 1 hour, and you would have mostly probably businessmen usually, or sometimes housewives, or who's ever interested, students. And they would just sit with you and you would teach them. And basically it looks like this. You can see these 4 walls are kind of close, small table, and you'd probably be sitting near the front, and you can kind of instruct lessons. And you'd have a whiteboard up front as well. So actually that's where I spent most of the time in Korea, those kind of places. But now I teach at a university. So when I first was there, I was teaching at these language institutes, and same here. Then now I'm at a different situation. But the book would have taken place in these places.
Would you have had like 10 students, or what would be your max?
I would have between 3 to about 12 probably. Ideally it'd be the less the better usually. And when I first started teaching, this kind of gets into the book quite a bit, but now as a teacher I know how to teach quite well. But when I first arrived, a lot of times they would just hire any foreign face. So I don't even have to be American. I could be Russian or anybody. They'll just white face, get in the classroom, teach. So there was a lot of that. So basically they had a lot of unqualified teachers. So if you buy this book and read it, you're going to meet a lot of interesting characters, and a lot of them are very unqualified teachers. And the reason is because of this system. The fact that they just took anybody that could breathe and had a Caucasian face. So you'll see a theme of kind of these goofy characters or weird characters or people who you think shouldn't be teaching. So you'll notice that a lot.
Kevin, did all teachers have a certain guideline that they had to progress these students at a certain rate?
Unfortunately, no. But I want to make a few things qualify. A few things that's changing a lot. So now they do have that. So now it's getting to be more and more professional all the time. So now they have a lot more requirements. But in 1996, when I first arrived, they had 0. So basically also at that time there wasn't the internet either in 96. So I wouldn't have been able to get teaching information either. So they would have like a bunch of books in the Hagwon, ideally, and some of them didn't have any books. But basically you kind of had to just wing things. So a lot of times I didn't really have the material at that time, and a lot of these teachers didn't either, so you would just create a bunch of questions that you just thought might be interesting. Like, what do you think about pizza? I don't know, whatever. Just make a whole thing about pizza and try to get discussion about it. And then later I would learn how to teach vocabulary before. But when I first started teaching, I didn't know any of these things. And you'll see a lot of these characters didn't know either. You'll see a theme of that.
Well, how would you do it? Because you're going over there, they're not knowing English, and at the time you probably didn't know how to speak their language either.
We just basically learned in the classroom. Like now, I would be a very different teacher now. But like for example, now when I go teach, I would teach a lot of vocabulary. I would give them sentence structures, and I would put them in partners, and I would monitor them, and I'd help them out a lot. But at that time, and same with these people, they just didn't know. They would just turn into what we call them in Korea. We call them like a clown, because basically you're just trying to be an entertainer. So at that time in particular, it's changing now, but at that time, the language institutes, they just wanted a white face in there. They make money. Students are happy. They're enjoying their time interacting with a real American. So it's kind of a cultural exchange in a way. And a lot of times they would just try to meet each other. So like I'm teaching there, but maybe he's looking for a girlfriend and maybe she's looking for somebody else. So there's all these little situations happening that's beyond you, and you're just kind of the conduit bringing them together. So a lot of times when I was teaching, I would just kind of create these horrible lessons. Like now I would consider them very horrible lessons because I would just ask questions. I would just say, what's your favorite food? And he would answer, and I would say, what's your favorite food? Because I didn't know how to teach, but now I would do it different. But the way I would teach then would be a lot like that, or people would juggle. Like I have a little scene in here, somebody comes in and they're kind of entertaining and juggling because they don't know what to do because they haven't been in that teaching situation before. So you'll see that in the book, and that's very similar to what it was like at that time. But as a clarification, now it's very different. Now it wouldn't happen so often now anymore, ideally.
So you didn't have any training whatsoever?
0.
You
Yeah, I had
just,
no.
go in and teach these people English. There you go.
Yep. And at that time in particular, there was kind of that recruiter system. So there's they're usually Korean, and they'd make $1,000. So actually, a lot of foreigners were. I was thinking about it too, like, oh, I can make a lot of money. I could just go back to America, find people to go over there, get $1,000, send them over. And that's kind of what was happening, but it was on the Korean level. So they would go to universities in Canada or wherever, and then send them over to Korea. They'd make $1,000, and then what would happen a lot of times was these schools would get unqualified teachers, and then also the teachers would end up in unqualified schools. So some of these schools wouldn't pay you, so you're supposed to get paid at the end of the month, but sometimes they wouldn't pay you for a few months. And then you're kind of making these decisions. Do I wait until I get paid, or do I just cut my losses and leave? So people would get in these situations a lot. And it was kind of common in the 1990s, and now there's so much legal stuff that it kind of prevents a lot of that now. So, but you'll kind of see that theme in the book too, of a lot of uncertainty for teachers and for schools. A lot of schools would get these really weird foreigners too, so it kind of went both ways. I just kind of wanted to show you, these are what, I lived in apartments that look like this. And in the book, I kind of talk about, there's basically, I lived in an apartment with 4 people, and there's another apartment we called the girls' apartment, and they lived in another one with 4 people. So between the 2 apartments, we had up to 8 people, and we lived together. So we spent a lot of time together. And then when they hire somebody, they get some really weird characters, and you'll see them in this book for sure. And you're kind of stuck with them all the time. So for an entire year, you're just like, you see him at work, you see him at home, you see him at work, you see him at home.
What city were you in?
Busan. I was in the, and I'll show you pictures of Busan as well. I'll tell you a little bit about it. But Busan was a city, at that time it was about 4 million people, 5 million people. Very large city, and also you'll see this theme in the book too. At that time, there's mostly military soldiers. Those were their experience to American people, was through soldiers. And then suddenly teachers started coming, like myself. And teachers were kind of new, and they would kind of go to these strange places that nobody else would go to because we were living there. We had to eat and we had to do things. So at that time, you see it a lot in this book, as people would stare at you all the time. Just everything you do, they're just staring at you. And if I saw another foreigner, I would remember them. So if I saw somebody somewhere in Busan 3 months later, like, oh yeah, I saw you. You were walking over here, and I could detail them exactly. And I would stare too, because I hadn't really seen a foreigner in quite a while, and if I saw somebody new, I would stare like, oh, a red-haired person's over there. It's so strange. But that is actually pretty common, and this isn't Busan, but this is actually a suburb of Seoul, but a lot of Korea has these tall high-rises everywhere, and I lived in one of those as well. And the apartments kind of look like this. You're always looking down on something, so I think my apartment was maybe 12 stories up. Maybe the building was 20 or something like that. So the whole country is kind of like just going up. It's going vertical.
They're not. The apartments aren't that big, though, are they?
No, they're pretty small. And actually now there's depending on where you live. But I was in Busan in '96 and '97. But then I kept leaving Korea and coming back. So most of the other years I ended up living in Seoul. And Seoul is, everybody wants to have a Seoul address. They want to live in Seoul. They want to work in Seoul. So the apartments get smaller and smaller. It's kind of like trying to live in Manhattan in some ways, but different. But so yeah, our apartments were small, 4 bedrooms, and so we all lived together. And actually, those bedrooms were. I think I was telling my uncle about New York, but so it was actually the same thing in Korea, but a little bit. So I think the apartment that I had there was. I think that one was. Some of the rooms didn't have windows because they converted it as well. And I was telling my uncle about New York, but there's the same thing. So they would convert the apartments and make it so they can hold more people. The next one is... Oh, my girl's doing really well. She's enjoying it. I thought she might have to play with the bubbles, but she's okay. Oh, okay, this is a scary one for you guys.
Oh.
Oh, no.
So if you don't want to look, you don't have to.
No.
You can.
Actually,
No.
one of the things that's interesting is that when I was in Korea, and I didn't realize this at the time, but in '96, '97, my Hagwon, my language institute, in my apartment, between the two is the largest dog market in Korea. And I had no idea when I first arrived. I thought it was just normal. I was like, oh, it's just the way it is. I didn't really know what to think, basically. But later I learned that actually this is very unique, and when I was up in Seoul, I couldn't find these. These are really hard to find, especially after the Olympics and different changes. But if I go back to the same spot in Busan where I was teaching, this still exists. It's still there. And this is basically called the Kupo Dog Market. And basically, they look at the dog as if it's another animal. So just think of it as like a deer, and you skin it, and you put it up, and people come by, and they'll slice up the meat. So sorry, it's kind of
Again,
grotesque.
I ask, why would you want that?
Yeah, yeah. And these are the things.
I know.
And if you're worried, sometimes people are like, oh, I don't even want to go to Korea because I might accidentally get this food. But actually, this food is very hard to find, and like you couldn't read this, but this says Boshingtang. Boshingtang means dog restaurant, and usually the dog restaurants are usually always next to the dog market. So you won't be just in the tourist area of Seoul and go into a restaurant and eat dog. That'll never happen. Like you'll have to search it out. You have to go to the worst parts of the city, find the poorest economic people you can, and you'll find it. But you won't find them among the wealthy areas of Korea anywhere.
Is it a delicacy?
No, basically, just to answer the question, basically what happens is usually older Korean men are the ones that eat it, and they use it for virility. So they figure like if they want to have children or whatever. So it's basically an older man's thing. So usually you won't find a Korean woman that goes there, usually. And a lot of young men usually won't either because, now we're so connected with everything, so the younger generation would be so embarrassed to eat it or go near it because of the stigma to it. But the older generation wouldn't think that way. They would still have that same belief system.
Did you actually have that?
I never did, but some foreigners would. Some foreigners would try it. But I tried lots of other strange things. But that one I didn't. I just didn't have the interest. But I can tell you about the strangest one that I had, if you want to hear. There's what's it called? Like these little squid, like a little squid or octopus. They would cut it up.
Yeah.
So they like to cut it up when it's living.
Oh.
And then everything is squiggling.
Oh.
And then you eat it. And I just to be a little bit graphic, just so that it sticks in your memory for a long time. But the suction cups, they get stuck in between your teeth and things like that. So you're trying to get out that moving octopus in your teeth. So I just want it to stick in your memory, So.
Did you ever,